I am Alicia, 32 years old, and I always dreamed of having my own space away from my overcrowded family. For years, I secretly saved every bonus check and tax refund until I finally bought a lakeside cabin without telling a soul. It was my sanctuary, my escape, until last month when a friend sent me videos of my family throwing a party there while I was in Europe. I forwarded them to my husband James. An hour later, he walked through that cabin door, and their celebration stopped cold. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from. In the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories about family boundaries and the importance of having your own space. Growing up, privacy was a foreign concept in my household. I shared a bedroom with my two sisters in our small suburban home where personal space was non-existent and someone was always borrowing my things without asking. Even my diary had to be hidden beneath a loose floorboard under my bed. I promised myself that someday I would have a place that was completely mine. After college, I worked my way up to become a marketing executive at a growing tech company. The position came with a comfortable salary and quarterly bonuses that I diligently tucked away into a separate savings account my husband James knew nothing about. Not because our marriage was troubled, but because I needed something that was mine alone. James is a wonderful man, 34 years old with a heart of gold, but he comes from a family where everything is shared. Doors are always open, and personal boundaries are seen as selfish. Family is everything he would say whenever I complained about his parents dropping by unannounced or his siblings borrowing our things without returning them. That is just how Family Island. But I wanted more than that explanation. I wanted respect for my space and belongings. So while I smiled and nodded during family gatherings, I continued adding to my secret fund labeled simply Someday Dream in my banking app. After 6 years of saving, I had enough for a down payment. I hired a discreet real estate agent named Valerie who understood my need for privacy. "Sometimes we need our own sanctuary," she said during our first meeting. "I will help you find yours." For 6 months we searched until we found it a 2-bedroom lakefront cabin with a wraparound deck and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. It was situated on 2 acres of wooded land, just remote enough to feel secluded, but only a 45-minute drive from our suburban home. The moment I stepped inside, I knew this was my place. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a golden glow on the hardwood floors. I could already imagine myself curled up on a window seat with a book, watching the sunset over the lake. The purchase process was exhilarating and terrifying. Each signature on the paperwork felt like both a betrayal and an affirmation. I justified the secrecy by planning to eventually reveal it to James as an anniversary surprise. I told myself he would understand once he experienced the peace and tranquility of having a special place just for us, away from the constant intrusion of family. On closing day, when Valerie handed me the keys, I felt a surge of emotion I had never experienced before. Ownership, independence, freedom. I thanked her for her discretion and drove straight to my new sanctuary. That first weekend alone at the cabin was pure bliss. I brought cleaning supplies, new linens, and a few personal items to make it feel like home. I swept the floors, washed the windows, and arranged furniture exactly how I wanted it. No one telling me the couch would look better against another wall, or questioning why I would choose that particular shade of blue for the kitchen towels. Over the next few months, I undertook small renovation projects. I fixed the creaky boards on the deck, updated the outdated bathroom with new fixtures, and splurged on stainless steel appliances for the kitchen. Every change was my decision, every improvement, a reflection of my taste. My favorite addition was a reading nook in the corner of the living room overlooking the lake. I installed a cushioned window seat with storage underneath, filled it with plush pillows, and positioned a small side table just right for holding a cup of tea and a stack of books. This spot became my refuge, where I would spend hours lost in novels I never had time to read at home. I established a routine of visiting the cabin every other weekend, carefully planning my escapes around family obligations and work commitments. To maintain the secrecy I created, elaborate cover stories, important work projects requiring my full attention visits to college friends in nearby cities, self-improvement retreats that James had no interest in joining. He never questioned these absences, trusting me completely, which added to my guilt even as I reveled in my freedom. The interior of the cabin evolved to reflect my personality in ways my family home never could. I hung abstract art that my mother-in-law would have deemed too modern, used vibrant throw pillows that clashed wonderfully with the rustic furniture and displayed quirky souvenirs from my travels that had previously been relegated to storage boxes. Every item had a story, and every story was mine. There was guilt, certainly, especially on nights when I would call James from the cabin deck, watching the moonlight shimmer on the lake while pretending to be working late at the office. But that guilt was always overshadowed by the profound sense of liberation that came from having something that was solely mine, untouched and uninfluenced by my well-meaning but overwhelming family. As our 5th wedding anniversary approached, I began preparing to reveal my secret. I planned to bring James to the cabin for a romantic weekend, surprising him with both the property and the news that it was already ours. I imagined his initial shock giving way to understanding, pictured us creating new memories there together, a private retreat where we could strengthen our marriage away from external pressures. I truly believed he would understand why I had needed this, why I had kept it to myself until I was ready to share. Little did I know that my carefully constructed sanctuary was already compromised, and that the boundaries I had established were far more fragile than I had imagined. To understand why discovering my family in my cabin felt like such a profound betrayal, you need to know more about the people involved. My parents, Martha and Robert, are loving but extraordinarily invasive. They retired 5 years ago, and now dedicate their abundant free time to being involved in their adult children's lives. My mother has never met a boundary she would not cross out of love, and my father enables her with his easygoing, just trying to help attitude. My younger sister Lauren, 29, has been competing with me since childhood. If I achieved something, she needed to achieve it bigger and better, then ensure everyone knew about it. When I bought my first car, she saved for a more expensive model. When I got promoted, she changed jobs to secure a more impressive title. Now she was engaged to her boyfriend Derek, a pleasant but passive man who seemed content to be a prop in Lauren's ongoing competition with me. My older brother Tyler, 35, is the family peacekeeper. While generally laid back and kind, he habitually enables our parents' intrusive behavior with phrases like, "That is just mom being mom," or "they mean well." He has never understood my need for privacy, having surrendered his own long ago. My in-laws, Sarah and William, are cut from the same cloth as my parents. They treat our home as an extension of theirs, dropping by without calling and rearranging my kitchen cabinets, because this setup makes more sense, dear. James never saw the problem with this, having grown up in a household where personal space was considered an abstract and somewhat selfish concept. Our family culture was built on shared keys and open-door policies. Everyone in the extended family had keys to each other's homes for emergencies, which somehow included situations like my mother wanting to drop off a casserole at 10 in the morning, or my sister needing to borrow an outfit while I was at work. Over the years, Boundary violations had become so common, they were barely acknowledged. There was the time my mother completely rearranged my kitchen while I was at a conference, discarding organizational systems that had taken me weeks to perfect. Or the family vacation, where I could not even shower without someone knocking on the bathroom door with an urgent question about dinner plans. Or the holiday traditions that somehow always happened at our house despite my annual protests about hosting. Every time I tried to establish boundaries, I was made to feel unreasonable. "We are family," they would say, as if those 3 words negated any right to personal space or privacy. James would shrug and tell me, "That is just how family is," never understanding that this was not how family had to be. The announcement of Lauren's engagement to Derek had intensified family togetherness to an almost unbearable degree. Suddenly, every weekend involved some engagement-related activity where attendance was mandatory and enthusiasm was expected. My polite suggestions about respecting our time were met with gasps of, "But it is your sister's special time," as if Lauren had not already claimed most of my childhood as her special time. The tension between my need for privacy and my family's expectations was reaching a breaking point when an opportunity arose at work, a 2-week business trip to Europe, to present to potential clients in London, Paris, and Berlin. Under normal circumstances, I might have tried to shorten such a trip, but with family pressure mounting, those 2 weeks away sounded like oxygen to a drowning woman. As I packed for Europe, I decided that upon my return, I would finally reveal the cabin to James as our anniversary surprise. 5 years of marriage deserved a special gift, and I convinced myself that once he experienced the peace of our lakeside retreat, he would understand why I had needed to create it in secret. I imagined us spending weekends there together, establishing new traditions and boundaries as a couple, strengthening our relationship away from the constant demands of our families. The business meetings were scheduled across 3 cities, with the final and most important presentation happening in Berlin. My team had worked for months on the proposal, and success would mean a substantial promotion. Under different circumstances, this trip would have been a career-defining moment, deserving my full attention. Instead, as I boarded the plane to London, all I could think about was returning home to finally share my sacred space with my husband on my own terms. I had no way of knowing that by the time I reached Berlin, my secret sanctuary would be discovered, invaded, and forever changed. That the careful boundaries I had constructed would be trampled by the people I had been trying to establish them with in the first place. That my anniversary surprise would be ruined in the most painful way possible. I was in Berlin preparing for the final client presentation of my European trip when my phone buzzed with a FaceTime call from Natalie. She was a casual friend who owned a property across the lake from my cabin. We had bonded over our shared appreciation for the peaceful lake community, though I had never explicitly told her my situation. As far as she knew, the cabin was simply a weekend getaway my husband and I had recently purchased. "Alicia, are you having some kind of party at your cabin?" she asked, without preamble when I answered. Confused, I shook my head. "No, the cabin is empty. I am in Berlin until Thursday." "Well, someone is definitely there," she said, turning her phone to show me the view from her deck. In the distance, I could see my cabin illuminated against the evening sky. Even from across the lake, the unusual amount of activity was obvious. 5 cars were parked in the driveway, and figures moved behind the lit windows. My heart began to race. "Can you get closer?" Natalie agreed to walk around the lake to investigate. 20 minutes later, she called back, this time from the woods near my property. "I think it is your family," she whispered, positioning herself behind a tree where she could record without being seen. "There is some kind of celebration happening." The first video she sent showed my sister Lauren and her fiancé Derek sitting on my new sectional sofa drinking wine from my special occasion glasses, the ones I had purchased specifically for quiet evenings on the deck. Lauren was wearing what appeared to be one of my sweaters that I kept at the cabin. The second video panned to my kitchen, where my parents were arranging platters of food on my countertops. My mother was opening and closing cabinet doors with the familiar confidence of someone who felt entitled to explore another person's space. My father was operating my expensive coffee machine, the one I had splurged on after my last promotion. The third video was the most invasive. James's brother Ryan and his wife Melissa were coming out of my master bedroom laughing about something. Melissa was carrying a makeup bag that looked suspiciously like the one I kept in my bathroom vanity. As Natalie continued recording, more details emerged. There were balloons tied to my porch railing, and a congratulations banner hung across my living room wall. Gift-wrapped packages were piled on my handcrafted coffee table, the one I had commissioned from a local artisan. Someone had brought my childhood photo albums, which were spread across the dining table I had so carefully selected. In the background, I could hear my vintage record player spinning one of my rare vinyl albums, a limited edition I had searched for months to find. Through the window, I spotted my mother opening and closing desk drawers in the small office nook I had set up for working remotely. Each new detail felt like a physical blow. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. "Keep recording," I managed to say to Natalie. "I need to see everything." I tried calling James repeatedly, but he did not answer. I texted my sister, my parents, even my brother-in-law. Silence from everyone. It was as if they had collectively agreed to ignore me while invading the one place I had created specifically to escape them. As I watched the party unfold through Natalie's videos, I experienced a range of physical reactions, nausea rising in my throat, tears of rage burning my eyes, a tightness in my chest that made it difficult to breathe. I considered calling the local police to report trespassing, but hesitated. How would I explain that my own family was the one trespassing? Would they even take it seriously? I calculated the time it would take to get home at minimum 24 hours, with flights, connections, and the drive from the airport. By then, whatever damage they were doing would be complete. I needed to act now, but from thousands of miles away, my options were limited. Out of desperation, I checked Lauren's Instagram. There it was, a geotag, marking my cabin's location with the caption, "Family celebration at our gorgeous new lake house." Our lake house. As if it belonged to all of them. As I scrolled through her feed, I discovered older posts showing various family members at my cabin on different occasions. This was not the first time they had been there. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Someone with a key had betrayed my trust. Someone had not only discovered my sanctuary, but had shared it with the entire family, turning my private refuge into a communal space without my knowledge or consent. My suspicions immediately turned to James. He was the only one who could have known about the financial aspects of our life together that would have hinted at such a purchase. But how had he discovered it? I had been so careful with the paperwork, keeping digital copies secured and physical documents locked away. As Natalie continued sending videos, each more invasive than the last, I made a decision. If James was part of this betrayal, he needed to face it directly. And if he was somehow innocent, then he needed to see exactly what his family and mine were doing in our absence. Sitting in my Berlin hotel room, I debated how to handle the situation from over 4,000 miles away. The professional presentation I had spent months preparing for was scheduled for 9 o'clock the next morning, but concentration was impossible now. All I could think about was the invasion happening at my cabin, the sacred space I had created being desecrated by the very people I had been trying to establish boundaries with. After considering my options, I decided to involve James. If he was not already aware of what was happening, he deserved to know, and if he was complicit, he needed to face the consequences of his actions. With shaking hands, I compiled the most damning videos Natalie had sent and forwarded them to James with a brief message. Our families are throwing a party at my cabin, the one you did not know about. Fix this now. The response was not immediate. For 15 excruciating minutes, I stared at my phone waiting for the 3 dots that would indicate he was typing a reply. When they finally appeared, his message was brief. What cabin? What are you talking about? I sent more videos, these ones, showing his brother and my sister making themselves at home in my private space. This cabin. The one I bought with my money that apparently everyone knows about now. Another long pause before his next message. I had no idea you bought a cabin. I am leaving work now. Send me the address. I provided the location, then added, if you are lying to me about not knowing our marriage is over. His response came quickly. This time I swear I did not know. I am driving there right now. This is unacceptable. The next hour was the longest of my life. I paced my hotel room, checking my phone every 30 seconds, torn between hope that James was being truthful and fear that he had been part of the betrayal all along. Natalie continued providing updates from her vantage point, across the lake, now using binoculars to observe the scene. A new car just pulled up, she texted. Tall guy, dark hair, walking fast, looks angry. James. I asked her to keep watching and record whatever happened next. Through her lens, she described James's arrival, how he slammed his car door, strode purposefully to the cabin, and flung open the front door without knocking. Though we could not hear what was being said, the body language visible through the windows told the story. Arms waving, fingers, pointing faces, transitioning from celebration to shock to defensiveness. Natalie narrated the exodus that followed. First, my parents walking stiffly to their car, my mother gesturing dramatically while my father tried to calm her. Next came Lauren and Derek. My sister's face flushed with either anger or embarrassment, perhaps both. Last were James's brother Ryan and his wife, looking annoyed as they carried what appeared to be overnight bags to their SUV. Within 20 minutes of James's arrival, the party had completely disbanded. One by one, the cars pulled away, leaving only James's vehicle in the driveway. 10 minutes later, he called me on FaceTime. The scene that greeted me was worse than I had imagined. The aftermath of the hasty departure was evident everywhere. Half-empty wine glasses on tables, food left out on counters, gift wrap strewn across the floor. My beautiful cream-colored sofa had what looked like a red wine stain on one cushion. The handcrafted coffee table showed a visible scratch across its polished surface. A vase I had brought back from a trip to Italy lay in pieces by the fireplace. James looked shell-shocked as he panned the phone around the room. His face was red, his hair disheveled, as if he had been running his hands through it repeatedly. I had no idea, he kept saying. I swear to you, Alicia, I had no idea about any of this. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. How did they get in? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Your mother has a key, apparently, he said, his tone, a mixture of anger and disbelief. She would not tell me how she got it, just kept saying it was a family place and they were celebrating Lauren's engagement. And what did you tell them? That they were trespassing, that this was your private property they had no right to be in, that they needed to leave immediately and we would discuss this when you got home. He paused, looking directly into the camera. When were you going to tell me about this place? The question hung between us, heavy with implications about trust and secrets. For our anniversary, I said finally. It was supposed to be a surprise. Somewhere just for us, away from everyone else. He nodded slowly. We need to have a long conversation when you get home. But right now, I think you should know I told them all not to contact you until you are ready, and that there would be serious consequences for this violation. For the first time since receiving Natalie's call, I felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps James truly had not known. Perhaps he was as angry about this invasion as I was. "Thank you," I said simply. "I will stay here tonight to make sure no one comes back," he offered. "And I will start cleaning up." But the damage was more than physical, and we both knew it. After ending the call, I contacted my airline and paid the substantial fee to change my return flight. The important client presentation would have to be handled by my team. Some things were more important than work, and right now salvaging what was left of my sanctuary and possibly my marriage took precedence. That night, in my Berlin hotel room, I barely slept. I kept replaying the videos in my mind, imagining what else they might have touched, moved, or damaged in my special place. More than the physical items, it was the violation of the space itself that felt irreparable. How could it ever feel like mine again, knowing they had all been there without my permission? How could I ever feel safe in my own sanctuary, knowing how easily my boundaries could be crossed? By morning, I had made up my mind. Whoever was responsible for revealing my secret would have to face consequences. No more polite acceptance of boundary violations. No more that is just how family is excuses. This time, they had gone too far, and I was done being the only one who respected boundaries in a family that seemed determined to ignore them. My return flight landed 12 hours earlier than originally scheduled. Despite the exhaustion of international travel compounded by emotional stress, adrenaline kept me alert as I navigated through customs and baggage claim. James was waiting in the arrivals area, his expression a mixture of concern and apprehension. The car ride home was tense, filled with awkward small talk about my trip and his work week. We both knew we were avoiding the elephant in the room, postponing the inevitable confrontation until we reached the privacy of our home. I stared out the window, wondering how many other secrets had been kept, how many other boundaries had been crossed without my knowledge. As we pulled into our driveway, I noticed something on our front porch, a large wicker basket wrapped in cellophane with a bright red bow. James sighed when he saw it. "That showed up this morning, from your parents." Inside our house, I unpacked the basket, expensive wines, gourmet chocolates, and a card that read simply, "We are sorry for the misunderstanding. Love, Mom and Dad." As if what had happened could be classified as a simple misunderstanding rather than a complete violation of my privacy and property. I placed the card on our coffee table and turned to face James. "I need to know everything," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "When did you find out about the cabin? How long have they been going there? Who else knew?" James sat heavily on the couch, looking defeated. "I only found out about the cabin a month ago," he began. "Your mother called me very upset, saying she had found purchase papers in our home office while looking for a family photo album." I shook my head in disbelief. "She was going through our files in our home office." He nodded grimly. "Apparently. She said she was shocked you would make such a large purchase without telling anyone, especially me. She made it sound like she was concerned for our marriage, that you might be planning to leave me. And you believed her." "I did not know what to believe," he admitted. "I was hurt that you had not told me, confused about why you would keep something so significant a secret. When your mom suggested that the cabin could be a nice family gathering place, that maybe that was your intention all along, but you were just waiting for the right time to reveal it, I wanted to believe her. So you gave her permission to use my cabin." The anger I had been suppressing began to surface. "Not exactly," he said, his eyes unable to meet mine. "She already had a key somehow. said she had gone to check it out and it was beautiful, that it would be perfect for family weekends. And you did not think to tell me, to ask me directly. I should have, he acknowledged, but part of me was hurt that you had kept it secret. And your mother was so convincing, saying that of course you would want the family to enjoy such a lovely place, that you were probably just waiting until it was perfectly decorated before revealing it. As we talked, more details emerged. My mother had discovered the cabin 3 months ago, and had been using it for weekend trips with various family members since then. James had known for 1 month, but had never visited himself, held back by a mixture of hurt pride and confusion about my intentions. The engagement party had been planned as a way to make use of the beautiful space with my mother, assuring everyone that I would be delighted to know my cabin was being used for such a special family occasion. No one had questioned why I had not been told directly, accepting the explanation that it was still a work in progress. I was not ready to show off yet. After sending James to check on our mail, I conducted a thorough search of our home office. In a folder labeled tax documents, I found evidence that someone had been through my paperwork files, slightly out of order. A receipt from the cabin's security system installation, placed in the wrong folder. A business card from my real estate agent that had previously been secured in my private lockbox. When James returned, I confronted him with this evidence. She went through everything I said, my voice shaking with rage. And instead of telling me immediately, you let her continue violating my privacy. I made a mistake, he admitted. I was hurt that you had kept such a big secret, and I let that cloud my judgment. I should have talked to you directly. The next revelation came when I checked my email and found a message from the cabin's internet provider confirming a change in the account password I had never requested. Someone had not only been using my cabin, but had been changing my service settings as well. We need to go to the cabin, I said firmly. Now, I need to see exactly what they have done. The 45-minute drive to the lake was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts. As we approached, I felt a knot forming in my stomach. This place that had represented freedom and solitude now felt tainted, contaminated by unwelcome presences. Inside, despite James's cleaning efforts, evidence of family occupation was everywhere. Opening the refrigerator, I found foods I never purchased. My father's preferred beer brand, my mother's special organic yogurt condiments I never used. In the bathroom cabinet were Lauren's distinctive makeup products and hair appliances. The closet in the second bedroom contained fishing gear I recognized as belonging to my father and James's brother. The most telling discovery came when I opened a drawer in the kitchen island, a handwritten schedule for the cabin's use with family members' names assigned to different weekends, stretching months into the future. My mother had even penciled in her book club for the 3rd Thursday of every month. They were planning to keep using it, I said, showing James the schedule, without ever asking me. They just assumed it was a communal property. James looked genuinely shocked. I had no idea it had gone this far, he said. When your mother mentioned it to me, she made it sound like they had only visited once or twice just to see it. Not that they were treating it as a timeshare. Further exploration revealed more violations. Neighbors who greeted us as the family from the city, clearly having been introduced to various relatives, presenting themselves as rightful occupants. Photos on my sister's social media showing multiple family gatherings at my cabin, tagged with Family Lake House Weekend. A coffee mug left in the dishwasher that read World's Best Grandma, presumably brought by my mother and left intentionally. That night, James slept in the cabin's second bedroom, the first time in our marriage we had voluntarily slept apart. I lay awake in my bedroom, staring at the ceiling, listening to the lake sounds that had once brought me peace, but now felt like background noise to my turbulent thoughts. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from family members. From my mother, "I do not understand why you are so upset. We thought you would want us to enjoy your beautiful cabin too. That is what family does. We share." From Lauren, "You are totally overreacting. It is just a cabin. Not like we damaged anything important." From my father, "Your mother is very hurt by your reaction. She was only trying to include everyone in your new purchase." From James's brother, "Not cool having your husband kick us out like that. We were just celebrating your sister's engagement." I silenced my phone and closed my eyes, but sleep refused to come. In the morning, I would need to make decisions about how to move forward, not just with the cabin, but with my marriage and my family relationships. One thing was, certain things could not continue as they had been. Boundaries had been crossed that could not be uncrossed, and trust had been broken that would not be easily repaired. The morning after our cabin visit, I made a decision. I needed time alone to process everything. Over breakfast, I told James my plan. "I am taking a week off work to stay at the cabin by myself," I said, stirring my coffee, without meeting his eyes. "I need space to think about everything that has happened." "I understand," he replied, his voice careful. "Do you want me to help clean up the rest of the mess they left?" "No," I said firmly. "I need to do this myself. This was supposed to be my space, and I need to reclaim it on my own terms." He nodded slowly. "I really am sorry, Alicia. I should have told you immediately when your mother mentioned finding the papers. I felt hurt that you had kept such a big secret." "I know," I acknowledged. "We both made mistakes. But right now, I need time to figure out what happens next." After packing clothes and supplies, I drove to the cabin alone. The familiar road that once filled me with anticipation now felt heavy with complicated emotions. As I approached the property, I tried to see it through fresh eyes, to recapture the feeling I had when it was truly mine. Inside, more evidence of family intrusion awaited me. My father's expensive fishing gear was stored in the shed, taking up space I had planned to use for kayaks. A bulletin board in the kitchen now displayed my mother's book club schedule and Lauren's wedding planning timeline. The bathroom cabinet contained toiletries belonging to at least 4 different family members. On social media, I discovered dozens of photos documenting family visits to my sanctuary, my parents hosting friends on my deck, Lauren and Derek cuddled on my window seat, James's parents preparing dinner in my kitchen. Each image felt like a fresh violation, proof that my private refuge had been transformed into a communal space without my consent. I began the reclamation process methodically, room by room. First, I gathered all items belonging to family members and packed them into boxes labeled with each person's name. Then I deep cleaned every surface, as if I could wash away their presence. I rearranged furniture, changing the layout to better reflect my original vision for the space. Each discovery triggered fresh waves of emotion, anger, when I found Lauren had rearranged my carefully organized bookshelf to make room for her romance novels. Betrayal, when I realized my mother had replaced my artistic black and white lake photographs with family portraits. Violation, when I discovered someone had been sleeping in my bed, evident from unfamiliar perfume on my pillowcase. On the second day, I called a local locksmith, who arrived promptly to change every lock on the property. As he worked, I explained that I had lost track of who had keys. He nodded sympathetically, sharing stories of vacation homes compromised by too many duplicate keys circulating. When he handed me the new keys, I felt a surge of satisfaction. This small metal object represented the restoration of my control. Next came security cameras, a doorbell camera to monitor who approached the cabin, and motion sensors covering all entrances. The security company technician helped me set up notifications on my phone that would alert me to any movement on the property when I was not there. Peace of mind is worth every penny, she assured me as she demonstrated how to access the video feed remotely. As I reclaimed the physical space, I drafted a document titled Cabin Rules and Boundaries on my laptop. Unlike the vague, often ignored boundaries I had tried to establish in the past, these were specific and accompanied by clear consequences. 1. No one enters the cabin without explicit invitation from me. 2. Visits must be scheduled at least 2 weeks in advance. 3. No posting cabin photos or location on social media. 4. No giving out address or access information to others. 5. Violation of these rules will result in 6 months prohibition from visiting. Throughout the week, family members attempted contact. I responded selectively, arranging individual meetings rather than a group confrontation that might devolve into me being outnumbered and overwhelmed. I met my mother at a coffee shop halfway between the cabin and my home. Her initial approach was defensive. I was just trying to include everyone in this wonderful place you found. That is what family does. Looking her directly in the eyes, I replied, "No, Mom. What you did was violate my privacy and property. You went through my personal files, made a copy of my key without permission, and treated my private space as communal property." "But we are family," she insisted, as if those words excused everything. "Being family does not mean having no boundaries," I responded firmly. "Would you enter my bathroom while I am showering? Would you read my private journal? Would you take money from my wallet without asking? Those are all boundaries most people respect, even with family." She seemed genuinely perplexed by the comparison. "That is different." "It is not different," I insisted. "My cabin is my private space just like my bathroom or my bedroom. The fact that you do not understand that is exactly why I needed a place of my own in the first place." By the end of our conversation, I had made my position clear. If she wanted access to my cabin in the future, she would need to respect my boundaries completely. The days of, "that is just how family is," are over, Mom. I need you to see me as an independent adult with the right to privacy. My meeting with Lauren was less productive. She dismissed my concerns as overreaction, insisting that sisters share everything. When I pointed out that she had worn my clothes without permission, she shrugged. "They looked better on me, anyway." That comment crystallized decades of competitive dynamic between us. "This is not about the clothes, Lauren. It is about respect. You did not have permission to be in my space to use my things, or to post photos of my private property online." "Whatever," she replied, examining her manicure. "It is not like you were using it while you were in Europe." I set firm boundaries with her no cabin access until she acknowledged the violation and demonstrated respect for my property. Her dismissive response told me it might be a very long time before she met those conditions. My father attempted to play peacemaker, as he had throughout my childhood. "Your mother meant well," he began when we met for lunch. "She just wanted everyone to enjoy this beautiful place you found." "Dad, I need you to understand something," I interrupted. "Good intentions do not excuse boundary violations. If I had wanted a family lake house, I would have discussed it with everyone. I deliberately created this space as a personal retreat." He seemed genuinely confused. "But why would you want a place all to yourself? Family togetherness is what makes life meaningful. For you, maybe," I acknowledged. "But I need balance between togetherness and solitude. I need spaces that are just mine, where I can decompress and be fully myself without accommodating everyone else's needs and preferences." Though he struggled to understand, he at least seemed willing to try. "I will talk to your mother," he promised, "and I will respect your new rules." By the end of the week, I had reclaimed the physical space of the cabin and established new boundaries with most family members. The final piece was addressing the issues with James. He arrived at the cabin on Friday evening, as we had arranged, looking nervous as he knocked on the door instead of using his key. I invited him in and showed him the changes: new locks, security cameras, rearranged furniture, and the written boundaries document. He took it all in silently before speaking. "I understand why you did all this," he said finally, "and why you needed this place to begin with. I should have respected your privacy when I first learned about it, and I should have shut down your mother's plans immediately." "Yes, you should have," I agreed. "But I also should have been honest with you from the beginning. Keeping such a big secret was wrong, even if my intentions were good." We talked for hours that night, addressing not just the cabin situation, but the deeper issues in our relationship. His tendency to dismiss my need for boundaries, my tendency to keep secrets rather than assert myself directly, our different understandings of family dynamics and personal space. "I want us to see a marriage counselor," I told him. "If we are going to move forward, we need help establishing healthy patterns." He agreed without hesitation. "I want to make this right. I want to understand what you need better than I have been." As we sat on the deck watching the sunset over the lake, I felt cautiously optimistic. The cabin would never be the same purely private sanctuary it had been before. But perhaps it could become something equally valuable, a symbol of my willingness to stand up for myself and establish healthy boundaries, and hopefully, eventually a place where James and I could create new memories untainted by family intrusion. "There are conditions for anyone visiting here," I told him. "Advance notice, limited stays, respect for my things and space. No exceptions, not even for parents or siblings." "I understand," he said, reaching for my hand, "and I will help enforce those boundaries. No more 'that is just how family is' excuses." In that moment, I felt stronger than I had in years. I had created this place as an escape, but perhaps its true purpose was teaching me to stop escaping and start establishing the boundaries I deserved in all areas of my life. 6 months have passed since that fateful day when Natalie's videos revealed my family partying in my secret cabin. In that time, much has changed, not just in my physical spaces, but in the emotional landscape of my relationships. My cabin is truly mine again, a sanctuary where I can retreat when life becomes overwhelming. The security cameras and new locks have prevented any unauthorized visits, and the clear written boundaries have established expectations that even my boundary-challenged family members have been forced to respect. The relationship dynamics within my family have shifted significantly. Some changes have been positive, others more distancing. Lauren maintained her dismissive attitude for several months, refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing. Our relationship grew distant until 3 months ago, when she called unexpectedly. "I have been thinking about what happened," she said, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. "After Derek and I had a fight about personal space, I started to understand why you were so upset about the cabin. I should not have gone there without your permission." It was not a complete acknowledgement, but it was progress. 2 weeks later, I invited her for a sister's weekend at the cabin, her first authorized visit. The rules were clear, and to my surprise, she respected them completely. My parents have been on a longer journey toward understanding boundaries. After several difficult conversations and a period of limited contact, they have slowly begun to demonstrate more respect for my space and privacy. My mother no longer drops by unannounced at our home, instead texting to ask if it is a good time to visit. My father has become an unexpected ally, often reminding her, "We need to call first, remember." When I finally invited them to the cabin for a day visit, They arrived with a housewarming gift, a beautiful wind chime for the porch. "We want you to know we respect that this is your special place," my father said, as he hung it carefully where I directed. "Thank you for sharing it with us today." The most significant changes have happened in my marriage. James and I have been seeing a marriage counselor weekly, working through the complex issues of trust boundaries and family dynamics that the cabin incident brought to the surface. It has not been easy, but the process has strengthened our relationship in ways I never expected. "I never realized how much my family's boundary issues affected you," James admitted during a recent therapy session. "I always thought you were just being private or particular, but now I see you were trying to protect yourself in an environment where your space was constantly invaded." The counseling has helped us develop new patterns of communication and respect. James has become vigilant about checking with me before sharing our plans with family, and he no longer dismisses my concerns about intrusive behavior with casual, "that is just how family is" remarks. 3 months ago, we celebrated our anniversary at the cabin, creating new memories to replace the tainted ones. James presented me with a custom door sign reading Elisha's Sanctuary, "Enter with respect and permission only." It hangs proudly at the entrance now, a visible reminder of our new understanding. The healing process has not been linear. There are still moments when I feel the sting of betrayal, freshly particularly when I discover new evidence of how extensively my family used the cabin without my knowledge. Finding my mother's book club schedule still pinned to a community bulletin board in town recently triggered a day of renewed anger and hurt. But these moments have become less frequent and less overwhelming. I have learned that boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out permanently, but rather frameworks that define how people may enter our spaces and lives in healthy ways. I have learned that standing up for myself does not make me selfish or mean, but rather establishes the foundation for more authentic relationships. Perhaps most importantly, I have learned that my need for personal space is valid and important. Growing up in a family where privacy was considered suspicious and selfish left me with a habit of apologizing for my boundaries. Now I understand that healthy relationships require healthy boundaries, and that by respecting my own needs, I am modeling respect for others as well. Last weekend, I hosted a small gathering at the cabin with people I had personally invited: James, my friend, Natalie, who had alerted me to the invasion, and 2 couples we are close with. As we sat around the fire pit watching the sunset over the lake, I felt a profound sense of peace. This was how I had always imagined sharing my special place on my terms with people who respected my boundaries. "You seem different," Natalie observed as we stood on the dock later that evening. "More confident somehow." "I am," I replied, watching the moonlight shimmer on the water. I finally learned that having boundaries does not mean pushing people away. It means teaching them how to be close to you in ways that feel safe and respectful. The cabin that was once my secret escape has become something more valuable, a symbol of my growth and self-respect. By standing firm in the face of boundary violations, I have created not just a physical sanctuary, but an emotional one as well. The walls of this cabin now protect more than a building. They protect my right to define how others interact with me and my spaces. If there is one lesson I could share from this experience, it is this: your need for boundaries is valid even with the people you love most, perhaps especially with them. Love without respect is not really love at all, but a form of possession. True love honors the separateness of the other person, their need for privacy and autonomy. In defending my sanctuary, I found something even more precious: my voice. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members who did not understand your need for personal space? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about navigating complex family dynamics and personal growth. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, it is never too late to create the boundaries you deserve in your life.